Hello, hello. Happy Thursday morning to you. Welcome to the Healing Hour. I am your host, Sarah Fargo O'Brien, and I am happy to bring you some new content today. I know I've had a couple of guests. I will have a couple of more guests as time goes on. We'll kind of toggle back and forth between conversations with guests and then me having content for you all on different kinds of things related to healing all around, trauma-informed care, trauma-informed leadership all around. As always, if you're here, let me know you're here. Give me a message in the chat. I can see the chat, so I can give you a shout out. So definitely put your comments, put your questions in the chat. I am coming to y'all in rare form for live video. So this is not rare form for my life, but rare form for today. I am tired. I am grumpy. I don't really feel like doing this. I don't really feel like doing anything today. That's where I'm at. I'll give you a little bit more in my check-in. But I like to practice what I preach and show up authentically. And that means when I'm not always in the best space. Hi, Julie. Glad to see you. Thanks. Thank you. I'm glad that you're going to watch later. I know that you're a busy, busy woman and all the things that you have going on. So I appreciate you popping in to let me know that you are here. Andrew Stout is here. Thank you. Hello. I'm not 2 minutes in, so I haven't gotten a chance to tell you guys that Andrew Stout and his awesome podcast on leadership as well, called Let's Be Diverse Podcast, is the sponsor for the Healing Hour. So this is a way that Andrew and I get to collaborate. I've been a guest on his podcast. I will be bringing him as a guest on this podcast at some point. He doesn't know that yet, but he does now. And at some point, I'll be bringing him on to talk about the things going on in his world and where we overlap in our leadership stuff. So thank you, Andrew. I'm happy that you are here today. Let me do my check-in. Let me pause and get myself in order. I'll do my 3 deep breaths to ground myself. But let me make sure that I've announced everything. I'm in rare form. Let's Be Diverse Podcast is our sponsor. Julie Johnson was here last week. So if you guys didn't catch that on toxic leadership, definitely do that. Julie is one of my mentors and colleagues, and we get to work often together. And we have something cool coming up in May about boundaries. So you'll want to catch that. I think that's all I can think of for now. Thank goodness Andrew has enthusiasm. I'm lacking on some enthusiasm today. We'll see if I can tap into it. Let me do my check-in and 3 deep breaths, and then I'll dive into what we're talking about today, which is gaslighting. We are going to get clear about this, and this is part 1 of part 2. I will go into what that will be. Part of my check-in is that I'm in rare form, meaning I am barely here today. I slept terribly last night. I am feeling real tired, real grouchy. Don't really want to interact with anybody today. So thankfully I don't. I'm only interacting with you all in this virtual hour. And then I am free to do things behind the scenes and write and create some training material. Because you guys know that's what I do outside of being a practicing licensed clinical social worker, psychotherapist. The other part of what I do is consult and train and write on trauma-informed care and trauma-informed leadership, how we get to that in some practical sense. So I am a little foggy and not as present as I want to be. And like I said, tired and grouchy. So that's hard for me. I do have my coffee in my handy dandy mug. My bestie gave me this mug because she says that I am a fighter. And indeed I am. And so this morning I am going to fight through my tired and grumpiness to bring you guys hopefully a great show. Good thing I have my slide deck and my content to guide me along the way. Grab your coffee, tea, water, whatever it is for you. Let's do 3 deep breaths to get to some grounding. And then we will talk about gaslighting. So if you want to take them with me, in through your nose, out through your mouth, really try to elongate that exhale. So then you can take a big full breath on the inhale. That's going to give us more oxygen, and more oxygen to the brain is just better for the brain. And it's really good for reducing stress in your body, in your physiology, in your nervous system. So here we go. First breath in through your nose. Number 2. And number 3. Okay, that helps me feel a little more calm. If you guys see my hat, it's okay to not be okay. Shout out to Own Your Stigma. I'm an affiliate person for Own Your Stigma. I love their mental health wear. So thought my hat would be appropriate for the day where it's okay to not be okay, which is me today. Even though I'm pushing through. Thank you, Andrew, for reminding me that I am a fighter. My coffee will remind me of that as well. Today we are all coffee, and that's what's keeping us alive and kicking for this morning. Okay. Gaslighting. This should be fun, right, guys? Who doesn't love talking about gaslighting? Okay, I think it does us all good to understand this behavior, what it is. I certainly have been the subject of gaslighting so many effing times, y'all. A lot by my family system. I have, if you guys have seen me before, you've seen me talk about my early childhood trauma and my unhealthy family system and the dynamics there. A lot of gaslighting has happened with my family members, but not just my family members. I was in an abusive relationship, both physical and emotional and sexual. And so gaslighting was a part of that relationship, and of course, professionally and in some other arenas. I've experienced gaslighting. You've probably experienced gaslighting. If not, you probably know somebody that's experienced gaslighting. So we might as well talk about what is it really, and specifically, how does it show up in workplace settings? This is part 1. Like I said, part 2 next week, we're going to go into more specific examples. So stay tuned. You're going to get more. In part 1, we're going to talk about what it is, manipulation and abuse, 6 signs of gaslighting, and the persistence of it. So, what is it? Gaslighting, yes, is one of those terms that seems to be thrown around a lot. But we really need to kind of, like, when we misuse things like they're so bipolar, or whatever. I can't even think of it anymore because my brain's not on, but like, those are not great things to say unless it's accurate, right? And so if we're just throwing around the word gaslighting and it's not actually describing gaslighting, it's diluting what gaslighting actually is, which is extremely harmful to people. So unless you're actually experiencing gaslighting, let's try not to use the term. And today we are going to learn what it actually is. And so many people mistake gaslighting for other forms of psychological abuse or aggression, such as bullying and exclusion. And that is not necessarily and specifically gaslighting. It is harmful. It is psychological abuse, bullying, and exclusion, but it is not gaslighting. So let's be clear about that. Gaslighting is absolutely manipulation at its finest. It is psychological abuse. And gaslighting is a repeated pattern of behavior. And so with those things in mind, we're going to look at 6 signs of gaslighting, particularly in workplace settings. By the way, if you're here, you have questions, whatever, drop it. Let me know, and I will try to answer as best as I can. I'm not an expert on gaslighting. So I will do the best I can, but this is what I know. As I said, at its core, gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation. The gaslighter, the person doing the gaslighting, which gaslighting is a behavior, manipulates the gaslightee, the person who is being gaslighted, in a way that forces them to question their own version of events and even their own sanity. This is severe, folks. Like, if you get to the place that somebody is like, I'm just going to say it because there's no other word to say it. And you guys know how I love the F word. Somebody is just fucking with you so much that you end up questioning your own sanity. It's a problem. And it's absolutely gaslighting. And it's crazy making. And it can just make you feel just like absolutely insane. And that is really difficult to deal with. Questioning yourself, questioning your reality, questioning what you know you've been through or what you know you've done or what you know you've seen does a number on your mental health. Using this psychological manipulation as a way to lead or because you are in a position of leadership not only causes harm, it's just wrong and inhumane, really. And that is my very strong stance on it. And if you we didn't talk specifically about gaslighting last week in the Healing Hour show with Julie on toxic leadership, but I do touch on how gaslighting is used in coercion, coercive power, and coercive leadership, which I wrote an article on, which is located on my profile page on Medium. Medium.com has a bunch of articles and things. So I wrote one last month called The Ugly Truth of Coercive Power, and gaslighting is one of the things that is used in coercive power. It makes sense. Coercive power is damaging and problematic, as well as gaslighting behavior. Gaslighting is also a form of psychological abuse. So psychological abuse, psychological manipulation. These are two different things. Both are very damaging. Used together is like diabolical in terms of gaslighting. And this is a form of psychological abuse that can be more subtle than other types of psychological or emotional abuse, like bullying, as I mentioned. Gaslighting is the opposite of feeling psychologically safe. Like, if you are experiencing that, there is almost no way, I think, that you can feel psychologically safe. And it's not only feeling unsafe, it actually is unsafe because it, like I said, does a number on your mental health that'll just damage you inside and out, especially if you're subjected to gaslighting over and over and over again by the same person, or you can't get out of that relationship. And it's even worse, maybe if you don't even recognize the gaslighting behavior, but you feel crazy. That's why I'm going over this. The Healing Hour is about healing in all kinds of ways. And if you have been the subject of gaslighting, I can imagine that it's left a negative impact on you, as it has done for me. And if we are like all in a place where physical abuse is not okay, this should not be okay either. This is not a murky line. This is a clear line of not okay, of abuse, just like anything else. Like, if it's not okay to go up to your employee as the boss at work and slap them across the face, then it's absolutely not okay to engage in gaslighting. However, because it is like sneaky, insidious, more or like less overt and more under the surface or kind of under the radar, it doesn't always seem as egregious as like going up to somebody and slapping them across the face. However, it is. And in fact, I would probably say it's worse. Not that it's fun to be slapped across the face. I have by a parent as a child. But that happens and then it's over. Gaslighting just stays with you and has you continuing to question yourself, long after they've engaged in the gaslighting behavior with you. Okay, so in my research, which you guys know I always do, just to brush up and have like specific information and terms for you all. So I'm just not talking completely out of like the left side of my face. But so that I know something, this is what I found, that there are 6 signs to sort of pick up on gaslighting. So if you're not sure if you're experiencing gaslighting, maybe pay attention to these things. Persistently negative. You hear persistent negative accounts of your performance. Remember, guys, I'm talking mostly about workplace settings. However, you can apply this to other things. If somebody is persistently negative about how you look or what you do at home or how you help, in the same way about your work performance, then it can be a sign of gaslighting. Gaslighters are publicly negative. The person you think is gaslighting you keeps making negative public comments, like to other people about you, whether they're true or not true. And that's where we get to number 3, falsely negative. You keep hearing negative gossip about yourself. So not only are they maybe making negative comments in public, but they are untrue negative comments. Imagine how that feels. Not great. Number 4, questioning reality. So if you find yourself continually doubting your perception of reality, then this is the biggest sign that you are experiencing gaslighting. So if they are, if we go back here and look at these, persistently negative, publicly negative, falsely negative, and then you end up feeling confused and questioning things, gaslighting. Number 5, belittling your efforts. The person who's exhibiting gaslighting behavior belittles your efforts, emotions, or perceptions. So this is like a lot like talking down to you or making you feel small, or that the things that you do not contribute or not helpful. They're not worth anything. So not only are they negative and persistently so, but they're like kind of cutting you down to size. We have to understand that gaslighting is a behavior that's used to maintain control over people, essentially. If you are making somebody question themselves and doubt their reality, then they are vulnerable. They are on shaky ground. They're not feeling confident in themselves. They're not feeling confident in literally in the things around them. And so when somebody is on shaky ground like that, in self view, potentially self-esteem, in worldview, and then feeling crazy, then you can control and manipulate them even more. This puts a person in a vulnerable state, which maybe makes it harder for them to recognize the gaslighting or to set boundaries against, a gaslighter. So it's really a psychological tactic to keep control over people. People that are aware that they are gaslighting are not doing it with good intentions. I mean, there's no other way around that. It's not well-intentioned if you're gaslighting. Is nefariously intentioned and mostly to keep control over another person, which just not okay, right? Not okay. Okay, questioning reality 4, belittling efforts 5, and 6, intentional exclusion. Now, I know I said in the beginning that exclusion isn't necessarily gaslighting, but sometimes it's not intentional or not in this kind of way. And again, if we go back to workplace examples, it's you're excluded from meetings or events relevant or required for your job. So this would be particularly a coworker could do this and just not include you, but it's most likely in leadership, intentionally excluding you from things that you need to know to keep you even more in a one down position and sort of scrambling. And it's difficult if you don't have power, right? Like if you're relying on your supervisor to give you information for things like relevant information or meetings that you need to attend and they don't, then ultimately it feels like there's not a lot you can do. It makes you look bad. They can continue to just deny that they ever excluded you. That would be gaslighting. So they would intentionally exclude you. You could maybe bring it up and they would say, "What are you talking about? I didn't do that. I told you about the meeting." And you know for a fact that they did not tell you about the meeting. That is gaslighting. And then in your head, you're like, did they tell me about the meeting? Maybe it's my fault. I missed it. That's gaslighting at its finest. It's making you question things that you know were true because of this behavior that they are using. And it's purposeful to knock you off your access so that they can maintain control over you. What they want to do with that power control, different. Sometimes people just want to maintain their position of power and control. Sometimes they want to do that by making you feel weak and inferior. Gaslighting is a great way to make somebody feel weak and inferior. And if you are questioning your own reality and then at some point then relying on the gaslighter to give you the truth, well, then that's all kinds of damage could potentially happen because they don't have your best interest in mind. They don't. They have their own best interest in mind, and they are willing to harm people in the process of whatever their goal is, to maintain power, to make money, to whatever, achieve something, whatever it might be. Again, guys, let me know if you're here. Pop into the chat. Let me know if you have questions. Let me know if you've experienced gaslighting. And then what kind of context, or how did it leave you feeling, or how did you know that it was gaslighting? We're going to go through some more specific examples next week. But I have a couple here coming up for you, in addition to what I just said. It's the exclusion from meetings and you saying, hey, wait a minute, you didn't tell me about that. And the supervisor is like, yes, I did, and that's one example of where gaslighting can take place and where leadership may use it on purpose to maintain power and control. Again, it's coercive leadership. It's not good leadership, certainly not trauma-informed leadership. But it's how a lot of people lead. Okay, the number one sign of gaslighting is persistence. This is persistent behavior that causes you to question your own reality. It's not like they just do this once, and once could be an accident. Like maybe your supervisor did think they told you about the meeting and they actually didn't, and it was just a mistake. But if these things are happening over and over and over again, they're not a mistake. They're intentional gaslighting, and persistence is part of that. The key to identifying and confronting this kind of workplace harassment, abuse, manipulation, let me throw those words in there again, is by taking note of these repeated patterns over time. And the best way to address gaslighting to protect your sanity after recognizing it is setting boundaries. And setting boundaries is difficult. And sometimes setting boundaries feels impossible for people at work, let alone how difficult it may feel to do that against a supervisor, management, or otherwise like the greater employer in which you work for, and they're gaslighting you. A lot of times people feel like they can't set boundaries against a gaslighter, but that's exactly what you need to combat the gaslighting behavior and its negative impact on you. Okay, I have two kind of short examples today. This may end up being a quick show, y'all. Which might be fine with me, given my headspace today, which you guys can probably tell. Even though I did my grounding, I'm still like foggy and not super focused. So I apologize for that today. I appreciate you hanging in there with me. And understanding that I like to show up authentically no matter what space I'm in. And that includes when I'm not in the best space, just so that we can actually see that human beings are dynamic and complicated and have lots of like parts and moods and behaviors. And I can't show up perfectly all the time. And so if I only show up when I feel like I can be perfect, then that's not really authentic. So I might as well show up when I absolutely feel like I can't be perfect, like today, and show you that authenticity. But it does mean that this might be a less organized show. And for that, I apologize. But for showing up authentically, I do not apologize. I wish more people would do that so I wouldn't feel like I have to be perfect all the time. I'm working on it. If you're a perfectionist, just know that I feel you. I know it's difficult, even if you're working on it. Okay, examples. I'm going to go with one from like a romantic relationship and then one in like a working relationship. So in a romantic relationship, An example of gaslighting might be a husband who frequently requests specific dinner items and then pretends to be confused when his partner makes those meals. And the husband then claims never to have requested it or even be familiar with it. That's gaslighting, right? Like, this maybe seems benign and it's really, really insidious, because what happens is, over time, and again, we talked about the persistence of this, can keep the partner off balance, like I said, off their axis, and even make them question themselves. So then you have the partner going, wait, he did tell me he wanted those things for dinner and I made them. Why is he saying that he didn't, or if we even get to the place like you've made it before and then you're making it again and he's like, I've never had it. And you're like, we absolutely ate this a month ago. I remember that. Like, I ate it too. I remember making this dinner. Like, if you find yourself questioning that, gaslighting, like we're and not just like, hey, did I make that last month or not? No, it's specifically in the situation where somebody's asking something of you, you do that, and then they deny ever having asked it, or they're not happy with what you did, even though that's specifically what they asked. This is the crazy making part of it. This is the questioning your sanity. It's that they have said something or done something that then make you question it, right? Like, that's how this works. Okay, another example, from a workplace situation, a boss who says they don't remember you submitting a deliverable, even though you handed it to them just a few hours ago. By making other people question their own memories, gaslighters use your insecurities to try to control you. Now, imagine if you have insecurities or past trauma or relational trauma, and that, like, that the dynamic or the relationship dynamic is a concern to you, right? Like, so if you want to like show up well, either in the working relationship with your boss or show up well in the work that you're doing, and they're telling you that you didn't submit a piece of work, then that's likely going to make you feel insecure about your performance or about your relationship with that person at work, even though the thing that they're saying is not true. If you end up questioning yourself, then you end up insecure also, and like that insecurity and uncertainty about what you did or what you didn't do, or if you are meeting the expectation of your boss or whatever the case may be, again, it's just gonna like wreak havoc on your mental health. And we know that if your mental health is poor, that your physical health is poor. They're not separate. They go together. Everything originates in the brain, which exists in the body, and then everything plays out in the body. And so this is not good for mental health, which just is not good for the workforce or people overall. So I don't, it almost just seems ridiculous that a boss would be like, no, you didn't give me that. It's like, why? That's just to be difficult, like that's just to be a shitty person. Like, there is no other reason unless they absolutely forgot. But again, this isn't just a one-time deal. This persistent behavior where you submit something and your boss is like, no, you didn't. For whatever reason, because they didn't like it, because they want to keep control over you, because they want to make you work harder. I don't know. Like, this is not behavior I engage in. So, the motive behind it a lot, like, just doesn't make any fucking sense to me. Like, it's terrible behavior for people, and making people feel crazy to me is like one of the worst things that you can do. And so this leaves you like constantly questioning, like, did I submit things? Did I submit things on time? Did I submit things correctly? Maybe they are right. Maybe I'm not doing my job well, when in fact you did actually do your job well. And it's your boss that's making you feel crazy and as if you didn't do your job well, or if you miss pieces of your job, which you absolutely did not. I think as I say these things, you guys can see like how crazy that could make somebody feel. Going back and forth with yourself about whether or not you did something or whether or not something is accurate. And then the gaslighter just continues to double down in their lies. I mean, there's no other way around it. That's just a lie. It's telling you, oh, I don't remember you submitting that, knowing damn well that they do remember you submitting that is just straight up dishonest. And if you're a leader and using dishonesty and again, this manipulation, God, shame on you. Just freaking shame on you. Like doing this to people is awful. You might as well just be going up to everybody that works for you and slapping them in the face as many times as you use gaslighting. It's certainly not an effective way to lead. If anybody has been following my content recently, I came across some really interesting information from a comprehensive study done on the American workforce and then published in 2023 about the gross dissatisfaction that people have in their workplaces and in leadership. And coercive leadership, toxic work environments, things like abuse and gaslighting are part of why people are dissatisfied at their workplaces. So the number of bosses, supervisors, managers, leadership, C-suite executives, company heads, whatever, that are okay with coercive leadership and using things like gaslighting is insane to me. I mean, it's probably 3/4 of working environments engage in harmful leadership behavior, which then is harmful to your workforce. And I know, I think Brandon Bishop commented on one of my things that the numbers don't lie. It's like they don't. I mean, they're pulling people from all industries, to like from, construction and HVAC and office jobs and healthcare workers and, teachers, like across the board. And people are dissatisfied at their workplaces. And often it's due to toxicity in the workplaces. And often that toxicity is perpetuated by leadership more than it is by colleagues or teams. Not that that doesn't happen, it does. But if it also happens in teams, that means it's probably either okay, you're swept under the rug, or not addressed appropriately by leadership, which again, from where I said, is still a problem with leadership. And the survey and the survey cites that the Harvard Business Review has stated that like coercive leadership and using things like gaslighting is actually the least effective form of leadership in terms of productivity and motivating the workforce and getting quality outcomes and talent retention. Like just terrible. It's actually costing billions to trillions of dollars a year in workplace or organization revenue because of poor leadership at those workplaces. And when you look at numbers like that, it like makes even less sense to me that people would engage in these kinds of practices and behaviors. They're proven to not work well. So not only do they not work well for your like business organizational objectives, they are extremely harmful and damaging to the people in which you were perpetrating this behavior on. And like I said, if you're in a position of leadership and using gaslighting as a means to maintain power and control over the people that you lead, shame on you. You need to learn a different way to lead. All right. I appreciate Andrew being here, Julie stopping in, anybody else that is watching that didn't comment, or anybody that catches the replay later. I knew this might be a short show. I was trying to pivot a little bit last minute, and I could have gone into all the other examples that I had, but I wanted to break this up into part 2 because those are a little bit more comprehensive, and I have more of them, like 7 or 8 examples, and I want to be able to dive in them fully next week. So stay tuned for some more specific examples. If those last ones are helpful for you, we're going to get even more next week. In the meantime, how can I help you with improving your trauma-informed skills? Now, whether this is whether you're in a position of leadership or not, if you are the subject of this kind of leadership, you can also be empowered with trauma-informed skills to take better care of yourself amidst experiencing gaslighting. And particularly if you're in a space where you can't get out of your workplace or you're not ready to, or whatever, finding some ways to manage your own mental health and wellness amidst a gaslighting environment would be important. So whether you are a leader or not, trauma-informed skills can be useful to you. So I have a couple of free things for you. Freebie number 1, How to Build Your Emotional Intelligence, 17 Suggestions for Every Person ebook. This is available right now on my website. Just go to the free resources tab, click on the emotional intelligence ebook, and the download is right there. You do not have to interact with me to get that. I like to say that because people sometimes feel strange about it. And it's like, no, to go pick that up. I didn't even have you giving me your email. If you just want to get it, go get it. Freebie number 2 is a short video discussing 5 key principles needed to create a culture of safety. Obviously, that eliminates gaslighting. If you're going to have a culture of safety, you cannot engage in gaslighting. We can't have coercive tactics used at all. So how do we get to that? How do we create a culture like that? Go watch the video on those 5 key principles. Again, located on my website under trauma-informed leadership. Okay, and then we talked about setting boundaries. So I have the setting boundaries kit. Actually, that price is wrong. Don't look at that. It's way less than that. I think it's 19. Again, trying to change my slide deck at the last minute. So grab this compassionate self kit to start setting your limits with gaslighting and gaslighting behavior. I also have a bunch of other new digital products. Hopefully, some of you that follow my content on LinkedIn maybe saw my genially little microsite gallery of my digital products. Trying to find my words here this morning is difficult, guys. And so I have a couple of new ones. One of them is Worthy as Fuck Workbook. So Worthy AF. Like I said, it can really do a number on your mental health, on your self-esteem, on your self-view, if you've been subjected to gaslighting, especially repeatedly, especially by a person in maybe a position of leadership or authority. And this could include a parent or boss, like I said, supervisor. So go pick up that workbook to start regaining some empowerment within yourself, remembering that you have worth and value, that the gaslighter did not take it away, even though they are trying to, and get back to some solid self-worth, self-esteem. These were fun for me to make, but more importantly, they have valuable information for healing and wellness. We need to feel worthy about ourselves. We need to learn to set boundaries. We need to learn to engage in sustainable self-care. We need to learn how to deal with and redirect negative thinking patterns and limiting beliefs that hold us back. We need to understand burnout symptoms, because those keep us vulnerable and subjected to other forms of abuse or manipulation, let alone it's bad for mental and physical health. So grab one of my kits or workbooks. They can be completely self-guided. They're comprehensive for that way. Or you could pick up one of my workbooks and then schedule one-to-one coaching with me, and we can go through it together. So we can see how much growth is actually happening for you, what you are actually getting from it, what just practicing these things look like, what's coming up for you when you engage in the journal prompts. So reach out to me for individual coaching. I am available for new clients worldwide. And then, of course, if you're in a position of leadership or have power, I guess, around leadership, can make some changes there at an organization, and you want people to engage in more trauma-informed care types of skills for leadership, then contact me for business-to-business consulting. Team leads, managers, executives, board of directors, human resources departments. I'm happy to come in and train you or your staff on trauma-informed leadership principles and or trauma-informed care principles for your staff, and how to create this culture of safety. Even if you are just a team lead and the whole organization is not safe, but you really want to create that for your team, we can start there. We understand that changing big systems takes time. So if it starts with individuals and small teams, well, hey, that's better than nothing. So if you have the ability to set up training as a team lead for your team, and it's important for you to have a culture of safety among everybody, call me. I am happy to teach and train you all in these principles so that you can have a safer and more effective workplace. All right, real quick about who I am. I didn't talk about this at the beginning today, but I'm Sarah Fargo O'Brien. I'm a licensed clinical social worker for 15 plus years. I'm living here in Virginia, but also licensed in Maryland. I'm a trauma-informed leadership strategist and coach and consultant in the wellness world and trauma-informed care, including being the director of student wellness for Transformation Kitchen, which is an offshoot of Chase and Forehand's HR4U nonprofit program. They just had a big event last Saturday that was pretty awesome. And I had been enjoying my work with the students over at Transformation Kitchen and making sure that they have all around whole person wellness to be successful in their new employment. I speak and train as well. And if you are a mental health provider, I do private practice consulting and startup practice consulting. I started my own private practice 9 years ago from the ground up by myself, with no investment from anybody, with no business classes, business degree, business coaching, or even consulting with a business attorney. I've done this all myself. I've never had any legal issues, any license issues, or anything else. I understand the policies, regulations, and ethics around our work and how to do that effectively within a private practice, virtually or in office. I can help anybody get that up and going as a solopreneur. And with all the layoffs happening in government jobs, this might be you. So if you know a mental health provider that a licensed mental health provider that lost their position sometime recently and aren't sure where to go, I can help individuals get their practice up and running in 3 months, and get you clients, like getting started going. You can take insurance. I do not have a self-pay practice. I have an insurance-based practice. And it is still pretty much thriving, as mental health will always be a need for people. So you'll get trauma-informed care working with me as your private practice consultant, and you also get somebody who gets it. I am a private practice owner, and I am a practicing therapist. So I wear the hats of providing the care and being the business owner, which I can help you navigate and figure out how to do that balance where you're also bringing in enough income for what you need. I can probably almost guarantee you that you're going to make more than whatever you did at your government job. So give me a call if you would like to get that up and running for yourself. I would love to do this work and keep mental health providers in the field providing mental health care, but in a way that's sustainable for them. As I've said before, thank you to Andrew and the Let's Be Diverse podcast. Oh, thank you. He says, I'm an absolute gem. Thank you so much. And that I'm always doing great. Well, I appreciate you, Andrew, as always, and showing up to my show. Don't forget to catch the Let's Be Diverse podcast. Andrew's had some really interesting guests on. Andrew's background is in human resources, and so understanding leadership and inclusion in those types of ways. So check that out. The show I guested on with Andrew, he dropped maybe like a week or so ago on achievement addiction or workaholism. So that was a really interesting conversation. Go and check that out. Don't ever forget that you matter and you are worthy. And if you need counseling, coaching, or consulting, Thrive and Shine is the one-stop shop for you. Thrive and Shine is me, Sarah Fargo O'Brien, and I am happy to serve you. Thank you to everybody for tuning in to the Healing Hour. I will be on next week with part 2 of gaslighting with some specific examples. And I really hope this is helping spread awareness about this and people are understanding more and more what this behavior is, how insidious it is, how harmful it is to people. And if we can't get people to stop gaslighting, we can at least empower people to stand up against it and set their boundaries so it doesn't negatively impact them. So I hope you got that message of healing today. Feel free to reach out to me for any of your needs, any questions, and to go grab those freebies on my website. Go to www.sarahobrienlcsw.com, and I will see you guys.